line. We've come so far with technology, it's hard to think of going back now. And a lot of technology does help us out a good deal. I mean, it's hard to imagine life without it now. I think the best opportunity that all this brings forth to us is kind of giving us the chance to question how far we've come and what it is that we really want to do. Like, we've progressed this far, and now we've got all these things ahead of us that we could do, all these crazy possibilities, and we have the choice to decide our own fate, basically. Do we want to become cyborgs? Do we want to take on these transhumanist ideas, or do we completely abandon them? And is that feasible to abandon them? I like to think it is. I mean,
how about
it just seems.
I'll continue.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
How about a let's say a pacemaker? This is one of these other kind of difficult areas as well, because that's really, it's invasive. You're putting something really into the body in that sense. Yet, apparently it helps many people to survive and keep their heartbeat going. Is that going too far? What do you think?
Oh boy, yeah. Now see, these are tough questions. These are, and it's a question that I have a tough time answering, in all honesty. I mean, they use a lot of the good aspects of this, like prosthetics for people who are quadriplegics and things like that. They use a lot of that to sort of
lower our guards.
Lower our guards and excuse a lot of the more invasive technologies like implantable microchips that have huge ramifications for personal liberty, which I can't see any excuse for that. I mean, we're losing too much freedom when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. And I hate to see these poor quadriplegic people being used as sort of just a mechanism to get that sort of thing into existence.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's very, very difficult. And I also guess on one regard, for me personally, I also feel very much that this should be an individual choice that we need to make, because on one level I consider that all these people that do want to go there, so to speak, and do want to go all the way, on one level I think it's their right to actually do so as well. But again, yet the problem arises where, if we end up in a situation where we in some way compete, so to speak, with these people, let's say they have cybernetic arms installed, whatever, they're stronger, faster, and all that stuff. We're going to be left behind, for the lack of a better word. I don't know. Have you thought about that at all, Aaron?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the freedom to choose. Yeah, and then if these people are enhanced to a point where we are left behind, as you say, what kind of freedom of choice is left for the people who chose not to take on that technology in the first place? History is pretty humbling here to see what's happened to the people that have chosen not to go along with progress, as it were, and remain simple. And when you see what happens to those types of people, it's pretty humbling and disturbing, but it's a real reality, and it's something we need to all think of. This is definitely something we need to talk about.
Yeah. Well, exactly, because again, I mean, it's you can twist this around again, back and forth all the time, and consider these things from a more philosophical viewpoint, I guess, as well. And one thing that I've been thinking about this idea of, we have the intelligence, we have the means to do this. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, that just because you can do it doesn't mean that it's right to do it. But it seems to be very much the way things have been going. If we look back historically, that what we, have been imagining and what we have been inspiring to, this is the kind of stuff that we actually have been able to progress to, or to achieve. And then I guess in the long run, we just have to see if that is something that actually is going to work or not. But I know that one thing that you discuss at the end of your film is this idea of what we might be losing here or ending up leaving behind, so to speak, is our very humanity, right, Aaron?
Absolutely, yeah. There's this idea of progress, and we all have this simplified view of what progress is. History runs in a line. We used to be pioneers, and we've gained all these technologies to make the world a better place. But where is progress going? People sort of attack my videos, and they ask me like, oh, well, you're against this technology. You must be against the Industrial Revolution. People like you're technophobes. Well, that's kind of a strange statement right there. I mean, the technical, the Industrial Revolution in and of itself wasn't a good thing. I mean, it was good in the idea of progress, but you're saying the Industrial Revolution's good. You have to say that chaining 12-year-old kids to machines for 18 hours a day, you're saying that that's good too. I mean, that came along with the Industrial Revolution. And this whole progress, we're tied to the machine more and more until eventually we become the machine itself. And what is a machine? A machine isn't human at all. It's efficiency. It's pure efficiency. So is this the way that progress is taking us? Is it taking us from human sort of, and we know what the human experience is all about. We know that we're imperfect and we have emotions and all these wonderful human things. When we merge ourselves with machines, I think that eventually you have to lose that thing, and do you just become a pure, efficient machine that's unfeeling and unconscious? Do you lose your consciousness itself? I mean, we all have our individual human consciousness. When does that get lost here in this process?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very important question. And also what you raise about the fact that this is, depending on who you are in all this, it can be good for you, so to speak. It all depends on where in the hierarchy you're at, basically. Because for some people, they might, have huge benefits from this kind of progress for various reasons, just like the industrial age or whatever. They end up in a situation where they don't have to work anymore, but someone else has to do it for them and all that stuff. So I guess that's also why we're kind of, we return to that question of the elite and try to incorporate that within our conversation here, because that is still something that probably is going to be still very much with us, so to speak, even if we go into this new future and a new humanity, that we might, the possibility here is that we might end up with a vastly technological superior elite, and then basically a more of a pawn, in this global society, basically. What do you think about that, Aaron?
Well, the British Ministry of Defense has stated itself that there will be a small super rich elite and a substantial class of slum and subsistence dwellers. That's everybody else. So they just come out and tell you that this is the way that things are going. And in that report, they say it will happen. See, they have different degrees of things that might happen, things that will probably happen, things that will happen. One of the things that will happen is that there will be a super rich elite and a substantial class of slum and subsistence dwellers. So there you go.
I'm also thinking of this report, or maybe it was more like just an article or news story a while back, where they also talked about the fact that they foresaw it might be the same one we're talking about here, but they foresaw the splitting of the human race. So basically, one tall, well-bred basically creature, and then a very small, dwarf-like human being at the side of this. You remember this article a while back?
The subspecies.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
There'll be the enhanced human that we're talking about as the transhumanist post-human ideal, this wonderful glowing creature of the future, and then there's just this little worker troll creature. I know Alex Jones talked about that in his Endgame film. He likes to mention that. I put that in my film too. The clip of him talking about that.
Yes, exactly. And it's a very real threat, as it were. And obviously one question that arises here is, okay, how do you stop something like this? How do you prevent this? So we're looking at a Unabomber style type counteraction here, or have you thought about like what do you consider that you should, can do to work against something like this?
Boy, that's the big question right there. What do we do? I know that we got to do something. I know that, like I said over and over, that we have to have a dialogue about this stuff, because there's basically zero dialogue in the public now, and I see it creeping up because even in regular conversations with people will just bring up the idea of an implantable microchip, like without me even mentioning implantable microchip. I'll mention something like, Big Brother and technology is getting sort of invasive and we're losing our privacy. And they'll say, oh, yeah, the next thing is we're going to get a microchip implanted in our arm. And they just kind of like say it off the cuff and like it's the next thing. And I think we need to take a minute here and just stop and see where we are and say, well, now, wait a minute. What would I have said 10 years ago? I wouldn't even thought of saying anything about an implantable microchip. And how has this conversation evolved? Why has it evolved in this way? It's been pushed in this direction through mass media. I mean, these ideas they're in there heavy. We're not just talking about this for no reason.
And also the technology becomes more, it does become, or do become closer to us all the time. Just, think of some of the cell phones out there right now. We have, GPS, within the cell phones. There is very much of this track tracing. Everyone has a camera on themselves all the time, or surveillance and CCTV, and then the mass media on top of that, or even the entertainment media. So it becomes very prominent, and it becomes more and more part of our lives. And the question is, have we ever stopped before in history? When we stand at one of these cusps, have we ever stopped before? Probably not, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we have, but I think the only option that we have here is to actually do that, if it's possible. We've become too acclimated to this, and once you understand just the way that just the way the world works right now, like money, where we are, the Federal Reserve, the way the media works, propaganda. I know there's more and more people questioning these things than ever, so that's good.
Yeah.
Will it be enough to turn around this huge tide of technological change? I don't know. I can't answer that. All I can say is that I hope that people at least question these things and take a look at them and maybe slow down for a minute.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the important thing is what you are doing. You're trying to bring focus to the topics and just start up the dialogue and make people become aware of these very troubling and difficult issues, because again it feels like we're moving more closer and closer to it all the time, so that the timing is obviously right to start the dialogue now. One thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about is regarding, let's say, transhumanism. Maybe if we can just define a little bit more of what we're talking about. I know that there's obviously different fields, for instance, within this. I'm thinking of, for instance, we can make one very clear division right at the get-go, and that's we can talk about genomics, for instance, or genetic manipulation. That's one aspect to all this, the biotechnology. Then we have the more technological aspect, talking about merging our biology with something mechanical or digital, like creating a cyborg. Is there any kind of big fields to the transhumanist movement that you feel we're missing if we just mention those two, or is that about it?
No. The fields are important, like you say, and as you said, there's biotechnology, and you also referred to information technology in there too. And then we have nanotechnology, and we have cognitive neuroscience. The cognitive end of this is one of the most interesting things, I think. But all these different areas, these specific specializations of science, come together, and that's what convergence is, into this singularity, this one single technology. See, the convergence into